Hey everyone, Joey here, aka Animus, and I am addicted to live music. Every year I like to do a little retrospective, looking back on all the live music experiences I've had of the previous year. I did one for 2021, and I did film one for 2022, but long story short, that didn't quite work out. But I'm finally back doing another one of these, and I wanted to just add a little bit of spice to the whole thing, so I thought it would be fun if I put together a little tier list of all these experiences. So here we are. I saw 10 gigs and 1 festival in 2023, which is a very healthy number, especially considering that I went to more real large-scale events this year than ever before. Basically, I just achieved this by devoting almost all of my money to either gig tickets or vinyl, but it was absolutely worth it. I had such a good year of live music, probably the best I've ever had. I mean, there's not any suspense really, since they're laid out in front of you already, but let's begin. Just running through the tier system. At the bottom we've got fun. I've never regretted going to a gig. I always at least have a good time, so this is for gigs that were not too special or mind-blowing, just a nice time at a venue. Then one step up from that, we've got quads workout. This is anything that had me moving my booty, or if it was a seated gig, I was busting down in spirit. Then laryngitis. This is where I start to lose my voice or else my mind to some extent. Transcendent basically speaks for itself. This is just a truly special, memorable experience. Gigs that had me feeling like my soul was floating in the air. And Change My Life is of course reserved for the absolute best of the best, unreal, unforgettable experiences. And spoilers, there might be a couple. Right, so first up, in January I went to see King Krule at Prism in Kingston. I'm definitely a fan of King Krule's music, so I was excited to be seeing him live. Funnily enough, I don't remember that much about this concert, and I don't have any particular reason why. I guess it was just in a bit of a January lethargy or something, but I do remember him bringing some quite powerful, emotionally raw performances, which the crowd were really receptive towards. There was lots of singing along, and some points the crowd going wild, getting pretty swept around. I'm not massively versed in his whole discography, so I wasn't able to join in with the singing all that much, which is always a bit of a shame, but that's my fault, I guess. So yeah, it was a very enjoyable experience overall. I don't know, on the scale of this whole amazing year of gig going, I think I'm just going to put it at the top of the fun tier if something's going to go in there. On the other hand, though, in March I went to the Alexandria Palace to see King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard for the first time. These guys are maybe one of my favourite new rock bands of the last 10-15 years, and I was hyped out of my mind for this show. There were some complications. It was originally meant to take place at the Brixton Academy, and that had some problems, so it got moved to this venue, and I was actually quite pleasantly surprised to get to go to the Alexandria Palace for the first time. But this venue has a different age policy, and on our tickets it still said 14 plus, whereas actually they don't let anyone in who's under 17 and unaccompanied, aka me and my friend. So we got placed on the platform, which was primarily for disabled people, and we felt pretty gutted at the time, but I think it's a testament to just how amazing this band were that I was not disappointed at all by this experience. In fact, I think we actually got like a better view of everything that was going on from where we were. It wasn't the most energetic crowd of all time anyway, and we were just standing there on our own having the time of our lives. It actually felt kind of VIP, to be honest, and this set list was absolutely unbelievable. Like all of these different pieces of music that I was thinking beforehand, oh, I really hope they're gonna play that one, like Robot Stop, Gaia, weirder unexpected cuts like The Garden Goblin, and 20 glorious minutes of The Dripping Tap as our closer. Absolutely spectacular, and considering how much I was still thinking about this experience for weeks afterwards, I think I can put it comfortably up into the Transcendent tier. And then, like, 1 week on the dot later, I went to see Orbital at the Eventim Apollo for the second time. The first time being all the way back in 2018, which was my first ever gig. This was also moved from the Brixton Academy, and actually I was really looking forward to having this whole nostalgia trip of going back to that place and seeing the same band again 5 years later, especially with Orbital being one of my favourite bands of all time, as I'm constantly saying. Now sadly this was another gig with some external factors that detracted from my enjoyment a little. Firstly, the PA was a bit weird in there, and I've heard other fans mention this as well on online forums. It was basically like, if you were standing in a specific spot around where we were, kind of in the middle, quite forward, you'd just be getting all of these really strong bass frequencies that actually made the overall sound quite muddied and the finer details more difficult to make out, so that was a bit of a shame. Secondly, there were some really lovely and friendly people who I chatted with there, but there were also just a few people who seemed to just kind of be like hanging around with beers, and like, it's hard to describe people who just weren't displaying much like reverence for the music, and even having conversations on top of it that, because of the weird sound, were actually very audible. Here's a clip.
Don't feel like you can't ask, please. We go back a long way.
I don't want to police people, but that kind of thing can actually get quite annoying. And thirdly, I was also distracted by a raging case of sinusitis. So there were a few things lining up to make this not quite the same incredible experience as I had back in 2018, but all of that was out of the band's control. So was this gig still great? Yeah, of course it was. I'd expect nothing less from these guys, and they delivered a whole load of the expected classics, some great tracks off their most recent album, Optical Delusion, and also some unbelievable surprises. They played this mind-blowing new version of Satan, which like gradually slows down and goes into this wild, heavy drum and bass section, and then transitioned that absolutely seamlessly into Requiem for the Pre-Apocalypse, which is one of my absolute favourite tracks off the new record. That moment had me hyped as hell. We got to hear Nothing Left too, which is like one of their best pieces ever, and they didn't touch the middle of nowhere at all at the last gig of theirs I went to, and as far as I'm aware they don't very often. And above all, the encore included a 15-minute rendition of Out There Somewhere, which is just like, what? That is like one of the best things I could possibly imagine happening at an Orbital concert. That track is an absolute masterpiece, and they honestly could have played the full 24 minutes. So that was definitely one of the coolest things I experienced this year in live music. And then they closed it all off with Lush 3-1 and Lush 3-2, so that's like practically a perfect encore. So it's really difficult, because if I'm being honest, I was like a little disappointed by this experience, but it wasn't the band's fault, like, in any capacity. So I want to put it in Transcendent, but I'm gonna go high laryngitis for this one. What are these tears, man? And I saw Richard Dawson at the Barbican the following month. I just discovered this artist a few months before and listened to his new record, The Ruby Chord, which is just this unbelievable kind of combination of imaginative folk storytelling with other influences like jazz and prog rock and what have you, and it's all on this really spectacular scale. And then I saw that he had this gig on, and I was just immediately like, right, I'm buying a ticket, I don't even care. That one album is enough to have me sold, and I'm infinitely glad I did. So about half of this concert was taken up by its opener, The Hermit, which on the album is 43 minutes long, and I think this is one of the best single pieces of live music I have ever experienced. I actually teared up at just how beautiful the whole thing was, and was just absolutely transfixed for the entire runtime, which is an incredible achievement on behalf of Richard Dawson and his whole band. It was quite a small arrangement of mostly just acoustic instrumentation. There was guitar, drums, violin, double bass, and harp, I believe. And just, wow, absolutely spellbinding, had me drifting off to another world. And then after it finished, he quite rightly pointed out that whatever he was about to play was gonna sound like a pop banger in comparison. And from then on, I'm pretty sure it was just all the new album except the closer, which I didn't recognize, but he went absolutely wild on. There was like this noisy guitar feedback freak out at the very end, which was so striking after the delicate beauty of most of the concert. It was just absolutely incredible across the board, and it's so cool to have had this experience with an artist who I don't think I'd ever even heard of before 2023. This was absolutely a transcendent gig. Then it was back to the Barbican again to see Rival Consoles, kind of an IDM and ambient techno artist who had just dropped a new album. And this was billed as an audio-visual experience. And on the level of audio-visual experience, it did not disappoint at all. There were these like really elaborate set pieces of lights. There's this one particular light that seemed like witchcraft, how it was just like sending out all of these patterns across the room from one point. Really dreamlike to experience. And the music was great, hard-hitting, atmospheric. I'm going to put this in the top of laryngitis, even though there was absolutely no singing along. Then I saw Inhaler in Prism, and I do enjoy Inhaler's brand of indie rock and indie pop. It was mostly my friend who was really looking forward to this gig. I was just there for the vibes and the experience mostly. But it was really fun. It was sort of like a nice low-stakes experience in my mind. Great energy in that crowd, and I was pleasantly surprised at how much I enjoyed it overall. So, yeah, I think I'm gonna put this in fun for now. I think that seems about right. But there were definitely people in that room who would have it up here, and I totally see why. Then I've got a bit of a sort of double bill here. One ticket for 2 acts. So I saw Girli and Lynks at the South Bank Centre. A driving factor of why I went here is because Girli's dad is friends with my dad. So got to meet up and have a nice little chat. Not with Girli herself, unfortunately, though that would have been nice. I think she's filling quite a niche as a modern, queer, British female pop artist. And she's got some good bangers. Definitely gave it her all at this performance. I was quite disappointed at the attendance at the first half of this whole thing. I felt like she deserved a bit better. There were a couple of girls going absolutely insane though near me, which was really nice to see. And yeah, I had a good time. There were just lots of gigs this year that were more special to me personally. So I'm just going to put her in the fun row, and I guess I'll just swap those two around. And then there was Lynks, and I didn't come really like specifically to see him, but I was absolutely shocked at how much fun I had with his performance. Like, there was a whole crew of dancers and all these sets and theatrics. More gay than any gig I've seen before. Lovely. There was an entire piece called How to Make a Bechamel Sauce, which he somehow made the raunchiest thing ever. It was just ridiculous and a really good time. I'm debating whether to put it in quads workout or laryngitis. I think I'm gonna go high quads workout for now, but I would definitely recommend seeing this artist live. And then, what do you know? I went to see King Gizzard again, this time in Munich, which is the first time I've ever been to a gig abroad. And we actually, me and my friend who I went to the first King Gizzard gig with, went to Germany with a big part of the incentive being this specific gig. And this was the best thing ever. Oh my goodness. Hands down my favourite crowd atmosphere I've ever experienced. And somehow an even better set than Alexandra Palace. Highlights including a 30-minute rendition of Head on Pill to kick everything off. There were like 4 or 5 minutes of build-up and everyone was just watching and waiting, and then suddenly this groove comes in and everyone just absolutely explodes into this like whirlwind mosh pit, and me and my friend were just like holding on to each other and screaming and laughing and having the best time, and they just kept doing these big long jams and monumental build-ups and working the crowd for that entire runtime. We got to hear some tracks off Changes, tracks off I'm in Your Mind, and then since Petrodragonic Apocalypse had come out at this point, they saved a bunch of those tracks to the end and then mixed them in with some stuff from like Infest the Rat's Nest and similar albums to make the whole last 45 minutes just this like furious thrash metal experience. There were like big circle pits of people running around, some guy in a cloak like doing things with his hands. I don't know what was going on, but I was just having the time of my life, and I got so exhausted that we even had to take a little break and then come back in to finish the whole thing off. Oh my goodness. Just one of the best gigs I have ever experienced, and I don't really need to explain myself anymore. I'm just gonna put it right up there in the Change My Life tier. Thank you, King Gizzard, and thank you, King Gizzard fans, for this experience. Okay, and then in a very different direction, I went to my first ever BBC prom to see Jon Hopkins with the whole orchestra doing orchestral versions of his tracks, along with a brand new 20-minute composition called Athos, which started off the whole thing. And that first piece was absolutely the highlight of this whole experience. As much as I love Jon Hopkins' whole discography, and as well as it works on orchestral instruments, it was just like otherworldly and ethereal in its beauty. I know those are like super overused adjectives, but they really genuinely applied here. The sound of a choir of like 50 people all working together in these incredible harmonies. You can't match that pure acoustic sound in any other context, and it really resonated with me on such a deep level. And then the rest of the experience I have slightly less to say about, but pieces were well selected, well arranged. There was even a little bit of electronics incorporated towards the end. So brilliant stuff, and I'm gonna put it right up here, just considering the overall insane level of quality among these gigs. And then, like 3 days later, I went to Forwards Festival again. I went the previous year as my first ever festival, and they announced another lineup, and I was just like, okay, I was planning to go to a different one, but there is no way I am passing up on this. So I've just chosen a select handful of the most significant and memorable gigs from those 2 days, starting off with Bonobo, who I absolutely love as an artist. I think he's got a really unmatched talent for these jazzy, lush, trip-hop and down-tempo pieces. I'd never seen him live before, and I was really grateful to experience this. It absolutely lived up to my expectations. There's a gorgeous sunset at the time, which was just the icing on the cake. This was really beautiful and immersive, and I'm gonna put it just below Orbital there. And then the headliner that first night was Erykah Badu, the queen of Neo Soul, and she didn't come on stage for about 25 minutes, so her band were just jamming out, and it was nice, but it was a bit confusing, and I don't think that was part of the act. Nonetheless, when she did make an entrance, it was just spectacular. Her outfits were out of this world. She had some brilliant charisma and stage presence. It was just really nice and chilled out, great vibes. I do think because of that, because of those mishaps, I'm just going to have to demote this slightly to the quads workout tier. I'll put it below Lynks, but Erykah Badu, love you, icon, would recommend. And then on the second day, I'm going to start off actually with this band Scalar, who I'd never listened to before, but were the best surprise of the whole festival for me. They had this really intense, like, deliciously dark sort of industrial techno sound. It was a really fresh, visceral experience with amazing crowd energy. There were a group of people towards the front just going wild for this stuff, and I would have loved to have stayed the entire time had the next act on here not drawn me away to the other stage. But great music, and I'm definitely looking forward to hopefully hearing a full album from these guys in the near future, or whatever they plan on doing. So I'm gonna put this top of quads workout, why not? And then next up I saw Jockstrap, who I'd seen once before, but in like a tiny Banquet Records in-store on a Monday with about 20 people, and now suddenly there was this massive upgrade to this huge festival crowd who were really excited to see their stuff, so I kind of feel like I've watched a couple of rising stars, which is a great feeling, and they put on a wonderful performance. Great selection of tracks, very fun, very diverse and eclectic. Turned into a big old dance party toward the end. I just feel like they're one of the most eccentric and unique pop bands out there today. So I'm gonna put this right there. I feel like I'm being picky, but do remember that the overall level of quality here is so high that my bottom tier is still like cool, great stuff, and there's just a massive concentration of great artists and great gigs here. So next up, Primal Scream. I was very tired when I saw these guys come on. I was a little bit late as well, trying to get food. I think it's just it was my mistake for coming this entire second day. Like, I got there super early when there wasn't much of a crowd at either stage at all. And by this point, I was just like a little bit knackered from dancing my ass off to everything. So Primal Scream, wonderful, wonderful band. Screamadelica's a classic that I've enjoyed for many years, and it was really quite a special opportunity to hear these tracks in a live setting. Big lavish arrangements, big light show, really good fun, hampered a tiny bit by external factors once again, but this is yet another really nice quads workout, and I'll put them here. And now, the moment you have all been waiting for, if you've been looking at this row of images at all. Yes, I saw Aphex Twin himself live in concert, which I cannot actually believe I'm saying even at this point. And this was unsurprisingly one of the best gigs I've been to in my life. Definitely the one that felt most, like, historic, like a massive moment in time. He hadn't played a Bristol show since 2006, I believe. He had this insane setup with, like, this cube above him, and when that iconic logo came up, I was just, like, buzzing so hard, like, adrenaline everywhere. I thought I was gonna, like, faint or something. Not even exaggerating. And the gig kind of started off so quite, like, beautiful by his standards, quite sort of on the softer side, and then gradually it was like everything was gradually flowing and ramping up into, like, higher stakes and a higher level of intensity and wild chaos. And I love how he kept the excitement going for so long by gradually bringing in more elements of the visuals and light show. And, like, when it was in its full form, It was just like absolute complete and utter sensory overload in the best way possible. These lasers just shooting up into the sky, all different colors, and the exact kind of wild, glitchy, dystopian images you'd expect projected onto this massive array of different screens. I just had a grin over my whole face the whole time. There's a hilarious clip of me not even knowing I'm being filmed. My heart skipped a beat when he played a little bit of Vord Hosbin, or however you say that, from Drux, which is a massive personal favourite of mine, which was a surprise since most of the stuff he plays is like remixes and rare tracks and unreleased material and other people's work. He even did this like literal giant dubstep drop, which I'm sure was like some level of piss take from him, but his version of dubstep actually went unbelievably hard, and I was loving every second of it. And then the final like 10 minutes were just all these wild gabba beats and everything, ending in this like 3-minute avalanche of noise, which was just a psychedelic experience to watch. And I was just absolutely reeling from this experience. Even by Aphex Twin standards, this absolutely threw me for a loop, and his gigs absolutely continue to cement him as one of the greatest electronic artists of all time, arguably one of the greatest artists of all time, and this is definitely going right up in the Changed My Life tier. And finally, to round this all off, I saw the Chemical Brothers at the O2 Arena, which just so happened to be the day after my birthday, so this was like a well-timed treat. This was the third time I've ever seen the Chemical Brothers, making them the act I've seen live the most. I said that Orbital at Hammersmith was the first gig I ever saw, and actually the Chemical Brothers at the O2 was the second gig I ever saw, so this was another, like, nostalgic experience, and I got just the same sense of overwhelming excitement and wonder as I got the first time. This time, finally tall enough and old enough to be in the crowd and properly dancing my ass off. Utterly top-notch visuals as usual, the massive robots, the confetti, the balloons, the surreal visuals on the screens. I'm really happy to say that some of the tracks off the new album were highlights here. Goodbye was beautiful, visceral, and poignant, and really, like, hit hard on those speakers, sounded fantastic, and The Darkness That You Fear was just such a lovely moment of live music for me. There was this whole rainbow of lasers, and there was this like one woman near me who was just like really vibing with it, and like we started sort of dancing together, and I just think that's so sweet to have those moments of like brief connection with random people over your love of music, and that's what it's all about, really. And especially exciting was, of course, the private psychedelic reel closing off the whole set. They didn't play this as the closer at the second gig of theirs I saw, but they did at the first. And I was just standing there hearing those opening notes thinking, like, I've been waiting 4 years to experience this again. And I was just, like, punching the air on an absolute high. Came out of that gig feeling wonderful. And I'm comfortably putting this in the second to top row. So there you have it. And I'm pretty happy with my placements. I don't feel the need to change anything, I don't think. I am so grateful that I got all of these wonderful experiences enriching my year like this. Getting to go to concerts is just one of my absolute favourite things in life. It's wild that I got to go to 2 spectacular King Gizzard concerts, and they're definitely a band that warrants that kind of thing since they've got such a ridiculously large pool of tracks that they draw from, and these set lists like barely overlapped at all. And also in terms of electronic music, The fact that I saw Orbital, Aphex Twin, and the Chemical Brothers in 1 year is just like, it doesn't get much better than that. 3 absolute icons who have made some of my favourite music ever. So there, I hope you've enjoyed this video even a fraction of how much I've enjoyed going to these gigs. And who knows what 2024 is gonna bring. I already have about 5 or 6 booked. So see you next year when I talk about those. But for now, thank you for watching. See you next time.